imagine that when you vote your TD in and you go to him and he tells you there's not really much that he can do, and people are of the illusion sometimes that that's the truth, that these people at the top are making the decisions or whatever. But the reality of the situation is that your TD, the person you elect, is sitting there in their Dáil voting on these decisions that the people at the top are making. And I think it's time that people need to go to these offices, go to their houses and shame them. Shame them. When you see them in your local shopping centres, roar at them. Shame on you. People will join in. Kenny, Kenny, Kenny!
Out, out, out!
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 Can't pay!
Won't pay!
Can't pay!
Won't pay!
Can't pay!
Won't pay!
No way!
We won't pay!
No way!
We won't pay!
Good and loud for the city, folks. Loud as you can, nice and aggressive. No way!
We won't pay!
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 I tell you!
Mark, just get it for a second. Just keep your drift off. I just want to say.
You're hogging it, boy.
Thanks a million.
That's the youth for you, that's the youth.
That's grand, save the voice for later.
Well done, very enthusiastic. I think people are going to be drifting off, so there's just one or two things
Do the household charge up.
one or two things to announce. First of all, we've a big box of postcards there. There were some people looking for them for their areas, so if you want some, just come up to me. We have them over there. Secondly, we have a leaflet here which we've been using on the doors in some of the areas. If anybody wants one, you can take it to photocopy if it helps you. There will be other material being produced. I don't know if there's anybody who wants to speak or say a few words, but I'm going to ask, we sent a press statement out today. Obviously, we handed it to the press that were here. There was a few people quoted on us, and one of them was Terry Callagher, who is a member of the CPSU executive, which is the union that's involved in revenue. Now, the workers inside here are not our enemies at all, as everybody here knows. We're not here against them. But Terry's going to say a few words about some of the pressure that's building up, you know, in the unions and in the CPSU, particularly with Croke Park, on the revenue workers, which can be very interesting. Okay, so Terry, I'll hand over to you for a minute. Just
there are about 5-6 clerical workers and probably a few more inside doing the work that they've been instructed to do and legally they have to do. They would not do it, and they would stand with this campaign if they got backing from the Irish Congress of Trade Unions. But the Irish Congress of Trade Unions has abandoned the fight against the property tax and the household tax. Not that they were there in the first place. If anybody knows about the Croke Park negotiations, another example of the unions talking about fighting austerity and standing with the working man and woman, but actually absconding their responsibilities and actually not leading any fight, and allowing this government to rip the heart out the living standards of working men and women. Now, saying that, there is a fight back starting from the bottom down in the unions. The CPSU at its last conference unanimously, to a man and a woman in its national conference, voted to support the campaign against the household tax, despite the leadership not recommending it. It's one of only a small number of unions to actually support this movement. But those unions are now uniting with the nurses and the medical organisation to fight the Croke Park deal. People on the ground have had enough. There is a national campaign being launched this week by the 4 unions, and the teachers' unions are being asked to join it, against the Croke Park, which is austerity in the public service. Croke Park 2 is all about austerity as it affects the public service. It means selling of public services, the dismantling of them, the cutting of the working, or the lengthening of the working week for workers, and the destroying of terms and conditions that workers have. And in essence, when that happens, employers in the private sector will love this, and they will turn their guns on the workers in the private sector. This is a race to the bottom. The guards and the inspectors were the first to walk. The nurses walked. The civil servants walked. And now they're taking on their leaders. And if they don't fight, we will get rid of those leaders. We need our unions. We want our unions. And we will take them back. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think everybody will want to hear this announcement. There's 400 teachers up in the Gresham Hotel at the moment at a meeting against Croke Park to vote no. I think that's a brilliant sign. And there'd be 401 if I wasn't here, so I think that gives you an idea. If the teachers are that pissed off, you can imagine what the rest of society's like. Okay, obviously it's open to anyone. If you want to say a few words about stuff coming up, can I just make a very important point again? As those letters drop, there'll be panic in communities, right? That's the time to hit with the public meetings. Not before, not 2 weeks after. We want to get a huge turnout to the meetings and get more people involved in the campaign. So watch out in your areas. The information we have is that they are going to go out on a county basis, possibly alphabetically, and in Dublin, obviously Dublin district basis, but we really don't know if that will actually work out. We've got 4 months to build a huge campaign against this. 4 months is what we have to ask people when they come to the meetings to give a commitment to the campaign for a short window of time. That we need a more active campaign than we had last year. We need more protest. And very, very important, all those meetings must build up for the national demonstration on April the 13th. That has to be a bigger demonstration than the Household Cards was last year. So we have to get people working for it and promoting it from all of the meetings. I really can't emphasise that enough, because it will be seen as a barometer of, how strong the mood is against the property tax. So we need to build for a huge national demonstration, April the 13th. The EU Ministers of Austerity, the EU Finance Ministers will be in Dublin that day, having lunch and wining and dining, etc., and we'll be marching up to Dublin Castle. So we need all the campaigns building for that protest. It's really important, as well as your good local national meetings and local protests. Again, before we go, I'll ask Joe Higgins. He's been in the Dáil when the amendments were pushed through last week against, in relation to the property tax, and maybe just say a few words, and if anyone else wants to. Okay, Joe Higgins.
Yeah, look, I think it's no harm reminding ourselves of 1 or 2 basic points and repeating them as we go out now to explain to ordinary people, to the media, etc., why there will be such a massive movement of opposition to this new austerity tax. Number 1, this tax has no democratic legitimacy. I was preparing for an article that I wrote for one of the newspapers on Friday. So I went and did a little bit of research. In the Fine Gael General Election Manifesto for 2011, Fine Gael said the property tax, which they said in their manifesto that now Labour is supporting as well, is a non-fair tax. That's what they said quite categorically.
Page 67.
And that they themselves would bring in something fair after 2014 to fund the local authorities. So Fine Gael, the largest party in government, told the people there would be no property tax as far as they were concerned. The Labour Party manifesto said, yes, we believe there should be a site value tax, but that any legislation for that should take into account 3 key issues. The difference between value of houses or sites, as it was, not the house, between urban
areas and rural areas, people in negative equity, and that it should also take account of people's incomes and ability to pay. Not a single one of those key issues was included in the legislation. So this legislation is totally undemocratic. They have made liars of themselves, and therefore